Within the next 200 years, all human disease will be eradicated from the planet, and here is why. You see, the reason that we cannot find cures for many diseases that plague humanity is because our minds are focused in the wrong directions. We are paying attention to the wrong things. And if we really wish to create a world free from so much suffering that these diseases create, we must begin looking at the root cause of all illness and sickness. And in doing so, we find the secret source of all disease. And it is so much more simple than you could ever believe. But as humans, we like to overcomplicate things. We like to think that things are more difficult than they are. And look, it's not that we shouldn't listen to authority figures in the realm of health and wellness. It's not that we shouldn't listen to doctors, to the experts. But we have to understand that they not only have an incentive, but their focus is often narrow-minded as well. When there is so much money involved in any particular thing, we have to, at the very least, think critically, because people have vested interest in certain outcomes. And you are left bearing the weight of any mistakes that they might make. The mistakes that might arise from selfish intentions or greed. And before I go on, I want to make clear that I do not approach this topic bearing any cures, that I do not claim to heal any diseases. I am simply sharing certain information, and you may do with it as you please. You see, there are two main forces in this reality, and we can know these forces by looking out into the universe. We may see that there is a positive force and there is a negative force. The positive force is the creative force of reality. This manifests in the form of stars. Stars are the creative force of reality. They are the life force of reality. They are energy, and they are information. Everything that exists in this universe was created by stars. That in fact everything that exists is recycled star material. And stars give rise to black holes, which are the negative force of reality. They are the force of death and destruction. All galaxies have at the center a supermassive black hole in which everything is slowly but surely being consumed. Not even light escapes a black hole. And so too within us, we have a negative force and a positive force. We know intuitively, with common sense, that we have energy, that we have a force of life within us. If you are alive, you must have a life force within you by default. And so, expanding upon this logic, wherever the life force within you is not able to flow freely, then death arises and takes its place. Where life is, death is not. And where death is, life is not. Here is one example. Say I go out into the cold, into the snow, and I dip my hands into the ice and stay there for however many hours. All of the blood, all of the life force within my hands will begin traveling back up my arm to my heart to protect the most vital organs. Because the force of life is needed at the main sources of life itself, for instance, the heart. And so what happens? The force of life exits my fingers, and the force of entropy begins taking its toll. Death begins arising in its place. And my fingers have to be chopped off because they have become damaged by the absence of the blood of the life force. In the same way, when we look at food, the moment food is cut off from the force of life, entropy begins taking its destructive toll. The life force slowly but surely begins leaving that entity. So for instance, if I leave a piece of meat on the counter, it will soon become inedible because the force of entropy has caused the life force to leave it more and more rapidly. Whereas when we freeze something, we prevent the force of entropy from acting upon it, preserving its life force. And so too, the same thing when we put food in the fridge. If we were to take a fruit off of a tree, the moment it is separated from the source of life, entropy begins acting upon it. And if we were to leave the fruit out for a week or two, it will soon become inedible. The point I am trying to make is that everything is a dynamic play between order and chaos, life and death, energy and entropy. And so the reason we die is because the force of entropy is acting on our bodies at all times, on our brains. And it is only that certain organs, certain parts of our body have higher degrees of entropy, have taken more damage by the effects of entropy. And so, as our organs, as our bodies begin more and more taxed by entropy, the life force within them, the life force within our body, is unable to flow freely. And so where the life force is not, death takes its place. So when it comes to eating food, for instance, it doesn't matter what you eat necessarily. What matters is the quality and how long the force of entropy has been allowed to affect it. Because food is energy, and so the quality of the energy that we are consuming determines the quality of the life force within us. If we eat food with large amounts of life force, we will feel more alive, more positive. We will feel better. And if we eat food with less life force within it, we will feel worse. We will feel more like death. And so pay close attention to the food that you eat. If you can't afford high quality food, it is better to fast and eat fresh fruit. Not fruit that has been sitting on a shelf for weeks, but fruit that has been picked off of a tree. For people who can't afford high quality meat, I would suggest it's better not to eat meat at all. Not because meat is not good for you, but because the information stored in the animal, the life force within that animal, you will be consuming that. And so if you're eating a life force, if you're consuming meat that has come from an animal that went through tremendous suffering, that was cramped in tiny cages, in filth. Remember, information and energy are one and the same. Even the idea of order and information are synonymous. And so, if you are eating poorly treated animals, all the suffering, all the biochemical emotions that that being went through, it is going to be absorbed in the meat. And when you consume that energy, that information will be absorbed into your energy. And it will bring your energy down. It will make you sick. Again, not because meat is bad, but because the quality of the life force within any particular food, that energy we integrate into ourselves. That is why they say, you are what you eat. It is not a figure of speech, it is being literal. And so whether or not we are healthy is precisely determined by the integrity of our energy system. The more entropy we have in our system, the more we are aligned with death and chaos, just like the black hole. And the more order and integrity, the more in harmony our energy system, the more we will be aligned with life. And so the degree in which we are aligned with death or with life is how quickly we will manifest it in our life, in our reality. Whether somebody dies at 50 years old or 100 or 200 is relative to the amount of entropy that has been allowed to affect the system. All disease, all illness arises only because there is a lack of the flow of life. There is a lack of the flow of energy. And so therefore all illness has one remedy. That is, restore the flow of life, and one becomes healthy. Take a few examples. If I go on a deep sea voyage and I don't take any oranges with me, in a year or two I will die of scurvy because the body requires vitamin C for the energy to flow freely, for things to function optimally. So therefore, if you are deficient in any one nutrient that the body needs, then entropy begins taking its toll on the system, resistance of the flow of life, the flow of energy. And remember, you can drive a beat-up truck for years and years and years and get by, but eventually things will start breaking, things will start falling apart, because it was not an efficient system. So too, another one of the greatest causes of disease is trauma, because our body is always receiving information and storing it in our bodies in different areas to help us adapt and survive. For example, if at some point I try and speak up, I try and speak my truth, but I get shut down by the group, or by somebody I care for, or by a parent, then that information is received, and because there is a strong negative emotional response, physical biochemical reactions, then my body is going to store that information in my throat to contract and restrict the flow of life within that area, because the body believes that speaking the truth could possibly lead to death. And so it is better to be unable to speak your truth and be alive. Sometimes you don't need a doctor, sometimes you need a therapist. But you see, that's not the way we think about things. We say, give me a pill and fix me, never even trying to address the actual problem. So understand that all disease, all illness, all manifestations of death arises only because there is a lack of the flow of energy within. Whether it is because of nutrient deficiencies, whether it is because of trauma, mental or physical, the moment we begin focusing on energy and reducing the entropy in our system, if and when the medical system will have this as its foundation, that is when we will heal all diseases. That is when the human lifespan will easily surpass an average of 100 to 200 years old. Because it all comes down to simply preserving the life energy within us. And we have the technology and the knowledge to do this already. But the knowledge is not widespread. We could have been in this place already because Nikola Tesla understood this very clearly for 100 years ago. But humanity was not ready. But we are approaching a time in which we are ready, because we have grown enough spiritually as a collective.